30 US cities with the worst homeless problem. There are many online lists on this topic, and they are based off of misleading information published by cities trying to hide the magnitude of their homeless problem. Other online lists have some type of political agenda to make cities like New York and San Francisco appear to have the biggest homeless problem. Since most people just repeat everything they hear on the news, I can already predict what the comments on this video are going to be like. That before you start talking or spreading misinformation, you should verify what you're saying first. People today want to make everything about politics. There really doesn't seem to be any type of correlation between homelessness and politics. Since some of the cities with the worst homeless problem just happen to be Republican cities as well. So what is a homeless problem? Well, for one, a homeless problem would be unsheltered homeless. These are people living in makeshift tents or shanty towns, high overdose rates, no access to medicine, bathrooms, or any type of social help. So if you're in a city like New York, where the city gives the homeless people a place to sleep, you don't have a homeless problem, you have a large homeless population. So we're looking for elderly people that are on the streets in wheelchairs. We're looking at people who are living in makeshift encampments. We're looking at people who are receiving absolutely no help from their city governments, dealing with inclement weather, and of course, vulnerability for the women. These people are unsheltered, unprotected, and vulnerable. Let's take a look at the list. Number 30 is Orlando, Florida. Seeing millions of tourists a year, you would think that a city with this much tourism wouldn't have a homeless problem, but it's starting to have one of the biggest homeless problems in the state. The overdose death rate in the Orlando area is almost doubled. Large cities like Orlando are now having massive uptick in overdose deaths. Orange County's overdose death rate is still only 24 per 100,000, which is relatively low, but over the last year, it's increased dramatically. Number 29 is Tampa, Florida. The state of Florida's solution to homelessness is mostly chasing homeless people from one place to the next, and providing assistance like housing is definitely out of the question in a state like Florida. The state of Florida has really struggled to keep homelessness in cap. A huge portion of Tampa's homeless population is unsheltered, panhandling, using minors as bait. While homelessness in Tampa is rampant, I will say that it's still a lot better than the surrounding rural counties. Number 28 is Chattanooga, Tennessee. There's a lot of great things that can be said about Chattanooga, but when it comes to their homeless problem, a lot more needs to get done. Now, the city of Chattanooga does have a lot of public housing, but it's not enough for their homeless population. Chattanooga is at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and the Appalachian region has one of the highest drug overdose death rates in the country, so addiction is a huge problem in this region. A problem that leads many people straight into the streets with homelessness. New home construction in Chattanooga is abnormally expensive, and I think it's due to the lack of workers. They just can't get enough people to work in this part of the country. Number 27 is Jacksonville, Florida. Now, Jacksonville has historically been the largest Republican city in the country. However, recently, a female Democrat is the new mayor of the city, and she's inheriting high homicide rates, high overdose death rates, a huge homeless population. Jacksonville really is an absolute mess of a city, but it's starting to move in the right direction. In the last few years, Jacksonville has seen a lot of improvements. So while there is a lot of growth in the city of Jacksonville, unfortunately the city core is plagued with homicide and the outskirts are plagued with overdoses. Despite that, they're building new houses or people are moving into Jacksonville despite the city's fearsome reputation. One of the scariest things about Jacksonville is that a lot of the homeless population are registered offenders and some homeless predators, a large number. So if you're out and about in Jacksonville at night, you want to be very careful. Many of the homeless people in Jacksonville engage in auto burglary, so if you're staying at a hotel, make sure to never leave any valuables in the vehicle. Number 26 Bradenton, Florida. Literally an entire generation that grew up in Bradenton ended up in the streets, and the ones that are still here are lucky to still be alive. Most of the people who grew up in Bradenton are going to know 10, 15, 20 people who've died over the years from overdoses. It seems like death in this city is easy to find. There's great car clubs, there's also beautiful beaches, but unfortunately, despite all the things to do, a lot of people have found some very nasty habits. The homeless people are just shifted around from one place to the next. They set up a homeless camp somewhere, and when somebody dies from an overdose, the cops come and runs them off, and it's a never-ending cycle of death and violence. Many years back, Bradenton's homeless population was mostly in large homeless encampments, but as development has moved in, pushing the homeless out of the woods and into the city sidewalks and into the city neighborhoods, the stories behind how these people ended up homeless vary from person to person, but unfortunately about 89% of the homeless people in Bradenton have self-admitted to me that they are addicted. While there are places to get food and some type of help, if you're homeless in Bradenton, chances are you are unsheltered. There's even homeless people living along the beaches. It's really a huge problem. The cause and the solution, difficult to determine. Number 25 is Melbourne, Florida. We head across the state to the East Coast. The coast with the most unsheltered homeless people. The current mayor of Melbourne does not specify his political orientation, but he was a rescue swimmer for the U.S. Coast Guard, so he's undoubtedly saved a lot of people out at sea. But what he hasn't been able to save is the dang homeless people in the city of Melbourne. It is an absolute mess. The police department here is absolutely brutal, profiling the homeless people. Police profiling is a huge problem here, antagonistic towards the homeless population, forcing them to live on the fringes of society, and this has led to the most marginalized homeless population possibly anywhere in the United States, where being homeless automatically makes you a criminal. I hate to draw this conclusion, but it seems like whenever there's a Republican city that's not doing too good, they just simply don't specify their political affiliation on the internet. Number 24 is Knoxville, Tennessee. Eastern Tennessee has one of the highest drug overdose death rates in the country, and Knoxville is right in the heart of a region plagued with high overdoses, high crime rates. The problems here are endless. Many years back, people were moving to this area because of its affordability, but many are finding out that it's nothing more than a run-down, drug-ridden mountain town. Pill addiction ran rampant through this area. Even before the whole country spiraled into an addiction, this area was already struggling. Number 23 is Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they have a Republican mayor. This city is just a sad place to go because Route 66 used to be the main street of America. The state of Oklahoma has been suffering for a long time, and Tulsa is really a scar on the land, a sad place to go to. Number two is Kansas City, Missouri. Not only does Kansas City have horrible barbecue, it also has a horrible homeless population. A lot of the homeless people just pick up beer cans or pallets, whatever they can do to make a living. According to the proper definition, people living in cars and RVs are also considered unsheltered. This has to be one of the worst places in the country to be homeless because of how miserable the place is to begin with. On top of its inclement weather, being homeless here has to be an absolute nightmare. Number 21 is Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. The mayor here is an attorney and he is a Republican, and his town looks like crap. Again, this town has an incredibly massive homeless population. Addiction is rampant among the homeless people, and there's a lot of abandoned buildings. But according to the definition of unsheltered, living in an abandoned building still consists of unsheltered homelessness. Oklahoma City is one of the most affordable places to rent in the United States, and it's hard to believe, with how affordable renting is in the city, that many people still find themselves on the streets. Number 20 is Long Beach, California. I think we all pretty much know what's going on the West Coast. This is a beautiful city in a lot of ways and a nasty city in a lot of other ways. It's a place that has beauty, and it's a place that has an ugly side as well. But unfortunately, the ugly side here, it's an expensive place to live in general, so homelessness here is in many diverse fashions. When you look at the Los Angeles area, Long Beach is definitely one of the areas that has the worst homeless problem. Definitely a sad situation. Number 19 is Asheville, North Carolina. This western and mountainous region of North Carolina is a little bit more liberal than along the coast. I think North Carolina is a state that has two extremes, one of them being here in the mountains. Of course, one of the biggest problems that Appalachia faces is extraordinarily high overdose death rates, and Asheville is right in the heart of it. That's accompanied by a huge homeless population. A lot of the homeless people here are unfortunately young people. They look like they should be working. They're young enough, they're born in the United States, they have all the opportunities in the world to be successful, but they choose to be bums. I don't think the problem here is originated in the area. It just seems like young people from all over the country migrate to Asheville. When they land here, they don't do much with themselves. Number 18 is Austin, Texas. A lot of people fleeing California ended up in Austin, Texas, but despite all the problems that Austin, Texas clearly has, like a massive homeless population, a lot of people fled California thinking that if they ended up in Texas, everything would be perfect. They're actually finding out that the problem here in Austin, Texas is actually on par or actually worse than many places in California. They have a huge homeless problem, and just like Florida, Texas doesn't give a crap about helping their homeless population. They just want to polish up the state, make it look good on paper, make some news reports to attract people from other states to move here. But when they land here, they figure out that the state of Texas has a lot of problems. In Austin, despite being one of the fastest growing cities in the country where people are moving to, a huge plague of homelessness. There's a lot of problems here. A lot of the homeless here like to break into cars and steal your crap while you're at a hotel. Property crime is very high in this city, with their windows smashed. Most likely homeless people just looking for a quick fix. So sad. Number 17 is Hudson, Florida. Hudson, Florida, Pasco County as a whole has one of the worst homeless problems in the United States. They don't have any help for the homeless. The police profiles them. The homeless people here practically have no rights at all. No help. If you're homeless here, you're on the bad side of the law and they're coming to get you. One of the biggest struggles that homeless people have here is access to medical care. Many have mental illness, and on top of that, they're combining it with addiction. What a horrible mess. Number 16 is North Fort Myers, Florida. It is not a city because it is unincorporated, but Lee County is predominantly a Republican area. North Fort Myers has had its struggles over the years. Homelessness has always been a problem here, and it seems like it's only getting worse. Many people are going to say that the homelessness here came after Hurricane Ian. That is a complete sack of lies. North Fort Myers has always had a large homeless population. Sure, right after Hurricane Ian, a lot of people lost their homes, but for the most part, the homeless population here continues unchanged. It's a massive number of people who are living on the streets. Addiction is almost going hand in hand with homelessness. Lee County, Florida does not have any intentions of helping these people. There's no services available. Even during hurricanes, they don't even offer the homeless people access to shelters. Number 15 is San Diego, California. You don't hear too much about San Diego. For the most part, it's a beautiful city with beautiful mountains, a beautiful coastline. It really is one of the safest cities in the country. However, adjacent to their downtown are some of the largest homeless camps in California. You might hear a lot about the Los Angeles Skid Row. Let me tell you, the situation in San Diego, California isn't too far behind Los Angeles. And in a lot of ways, it's actually worse than Los Angeles. You hear a lot about San Francisco. You hear about Los Angeles all the time. San Diego kind of goes unmentioned, but it really does have a huge homeless problem. The good thing is that weather here is almost perfect. They don't get a lot of rainfall. It doesn't get extraordinarily hot. It doesn't get extraordinarily cold, which means that being homeless here is somewhat easy. And they do allow people to put their tents right on the sidewalks. It might be unsightly, but it somewhat makes homelessness a lot easier for these people. Now, of course, that doesn't make homelessness perfect, but it makes it a whole lot easier than dealing with inclement weather and of course dealing with high crime. San Diego is a very safe city, so overall the condition of homelessness here isn't the worst I've seen. It's actually pretty normal to see homeless people in San Diego, and most of them are just about normal people. You can just talk to them. There doesn't seem to be this prejudice like in other places. But the reason it ranks so high on my list is because I think the homeless population here really is considerably large, and thus there's a problem here, not so much in the condition of homelessness, but just the sheer number of it. Number 14 is Oakland, California. The mayor of Oakland is a female, and she is of Hmong origin, being the first Hmong mayor of any U.S. city. She's a young female. Oakland has a huge crime problem. They actually have the highest homicide rate of any city on the west coast of the USA, and they have a huge homeless problem. There's a lot of crime in this homeless population. Imagine being homeless in a city that's plagued with crime. There's definitely a lot of challenges for the homeless population here. Oakland is part of the San Francisco metropolitan area. You may hear a lot of horrible things about San Francisco. I actually went there and I walked through the Tenderloin, which is supposed to be their worst district, and there's homeless people scattered here and there, but it's nothing like what they put out in the media. San Francisco is one of the largest cities in the country, so by population, they're always going to have one of the largest homeless populations. But there really isn't that much homelessness right in San Francisco. It's places on the outskirts like San Jose and Oakland where you're going to find much larger homeless populations. And really, it's scattered from suburb to suburb. But Oakland definitely has some of the worst of it, being on the other side of that bridge. Let me tell you, there's a huge difference between clean, safe San Francisco and crime-ridden Oakland. And if you think San Francisco is this horrible, crime-ridden place, let me just tell you, you've been informed incorrectly. You've been listening to a lot of political propaganda. You've believed it, and it's okay. I believed it myself until I actually went to San Francisco. I purposely tried to find the worst places and see the worst things I could see, and Oakland was about as bad as it got in that area. Really, you should go there yourself and see it for yourself. You'll see it's one of the safest cities. It has a very low murder rate. It doesn't really in any way stick out as a bad city. It has high incomes, high real estate values, low murder rates. So don't just believe everything you hear blindly. Like, go out there and see it for yourself. Just don't go to Oakland. That's definitely a mess. Number 13 is Los Angeles, California. But I want to be clear, it's not all of Los Angeles. It's Hollywood, it's Skid Row, it's around Santa Monica and Venice. It's not like every square inch of Los Angeles is a homeless infected crap hole. And it's actually hard to tell the difference between the homeless people and the hipsters. They look like the same exact thing to me. We did go to Skid Row, and we did see the horrendous streets of Skid Row, but I'll be honest with you, if you consider the scale of Los Angeles being the second largest metropolitan area in the country, by number, you're definitely going to have a huge homeless population. And then if they all congregate in one single place, Skid Row, then it's going to look tremendously bad. But if you ever drive through Skid Row in the daytime or at night, like I have a few times, you start to realize that for the proportion of the metropolitan area, it really isn't out of control. It's really proportionate to the size of the metropolitan area and to the size of the population. But if you're in a few pockets of Los Angeles, like around Hollywood and Skid Row, it's definitely going to be overwhelming to see so many homeless people. Inclement weather really isn't that big of a concern. In a lot of ways, Los Angeles is the perfect place to be homeless. Number 12 is Santa Cruz, California. Located in Monterey Bay, one of the most beautiful scenic parts of the country, there's a huge homeless problem in Santa Cruz. Despite being a small city, it really has a large homeless problem. Real estate prices in this part of California are the most expensive in the country, which means that obtaining housing here is absolutely difficult. But at the same time, you'll see people that are addicted. You see people with mental health problems and others who simply like the homeless lifestyle. It's an optional thing for people to be homeless in this part of California. For them, it's like a lifestyle. It's a lack of responsibilities. They refer to it as a freedom. Seemed like a lot of the homeless people that I encountered in this area of California are what I would call optionally homeless. They have made the decision to be homeless as a lifestyle decision. It's not out of necessity. It's not out of hardship. It's just this is what they choose for themselves. A while back, Santa Cruz had the highest homeless percentage per capita in the United States, and I can definitely see it. And it's not just housing that's expensive here. Generally, everything is expensive here. Number 11 is San Jose, California, located at the southern end of the San Francisco Bay Area. The homeless population here is considerable. It's a large problem. San Jose has the highest real estate prices of any large city in the country. And that's not because it's a crap hole. It's not because it's a horrible place. It's because you have some of the most beautiful natural settings, the forest, the mountains, the sea, the safety. It's one of the safest large cities in the country with a homicide rate of less than 3 per 100,000. It's an absolute dream city to live in. But you gotta have money to live here. And a lot of the people that are living in poverty here and homelessness are homeless because they're trying to live in one of the most expensive places in the whole dang United States. Recently, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, had the city of San Jose evict the largest homeless camp because it was a huge homeless camp where people were burning garbage right next to an airport. And they say, hey, we cannot have this situation going on. I'm not saying San Jose is a horrible city. It's got great criminal analytics, but it does have a huge homeless population. And that right there is undeniable. Homeless population here derives directly from the housing market. It's just too expensive. Number 10, Seattle, Washington. In the case of Seattle, they've kind of accommodated homeless people. As we all know, the West Coast is the most liberal coast, and they've kind of had also a lot of real estate appreciation. People want to live in Seattle. There's great paying jobs. There's beautiful nature. It seems like Seattle, with its extraordinarily high real estate values and liberal policies that somewhat accommodate homelessness, has created a huge homeless problem. And let's not forget the incredibly high population density due to the cost of real estate. Some people would say that the homeless population here gets a little bit too much. It's almost like they're accommodating the homeless people, and well, they have a huge homeless problem. Number 9 is El Centro, California. If you're entering California through the most southern part, you'll be welcomed to California by a small town that is absolutely homeless-ridden. Crime, homelessness. It's like, welcome to California. Look at what a crap hole we've become. Luckily, though, it's not the whole state of California, but this town definitely represents the worst of California. Homelessness per capita here is among the highest in the United States. The place just has a creepy, bad, negative vibe. Homeless people are scattered everywhere. Garbage is everywhere. You really wouldn't expect a town this size to have just a huge homeless problem, but leave it up to California to figure that part out. Number 8 is Eugene, Oregon. This town has homeless people scattered everywhere. The city's downtowns, the outskirts of the city, crap, even fields in the middle of nowhere are just littered with homeless people. Oh, I'm sorry, people camping overnight. I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anybody. But if you want to see a city with a massive homeless problem, visit Eugene, Oregon. They're literally everywhere, from fields to the city to the downtown. If there's a homeless person, they're probably here. Homelessness in Oregon really is shocking. It seems like outside of every shopping plaza, there's 5 or 6 homeless people outside and a bunch of abandoned vehicles in the parking lot. It's completely unacceptable. They're trying to make some homes, but it's just not enough. Number 7 is Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've been all across America, and some of the most shocking homelessness that I've seen anywhere is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And again, they're putting up some small, tiny houses to help some of the homeless people have a place to live. But there's clearly not funds for everybody. And the city of Albuquerque is just littered with homeless people. A lot of them are injured. A lot of them are in wheelchairs. They're hurt. Others are addicted. The weather here sucks. It gets very hot. It's a fairly poor state and an even poorer city. If there's not enough resources for the regular working class people, it's hard to find a solution for those who are homeless. Las Vegas, Nevada, one of the most iconic cities in the United States, known for its vibrant nightlife and huge tourism. But if you look a little closer at Las Vegas, you'll see a lot of homeless people here. Many of them are elderly. Many of them are disabled. For many of these people, their homeless condition is aggravating their health. Obviously, a lot of these people came here to gamble, lost everything, and ended up on the streets. Others are just victims of a monetary system that has failed them. They're physically disabled, and the cost of living is higher than what they're able to obtain through a small disability. Many people go to Las Vegas for a good time, but if you look a little closer, you'll see some of the worst misery you'll see anywhere in the United States. A place where people literally throw money on the ground in one place, and where people are dying for lack of basic services across town. Interestingly enough, you barely ever hear anything bad about Las Vegas when it comes to homelessness. It's always California who's bad at homelessness, but there's a lot of other states on the West Coast that are plagued with homelessness that simply just don't get the same notoriety, or they're not the pun of political jokes. But Las Vegas definitely has a problem. Because of the nature of Las Vegas, women homeless here are extraordinarily vulnerable. Number 5, Sacramento, California. To illustrate to you how bad the homelessness is in Sacramento, we're just going to cruise along this river, this creek that goes through the city, and just along this one creek, look at how much misery and contamination. California designates itself as a place of regulation and environmental concern, but when you look at the condition of these creeks, the amount of contamination that are being pumped into these creeks by humans, despite California wanting to put itself as a place of environmental concern, when you look at these creeks that flow through these cities in California, they are nothing more but pure pollution. The homelessness per capita is high, and because it's a pretty decent sized metropolitan area, their population of homelessness is as well. If you don't mind moving into a bad neighborhood, housing really isn't that unaffordable everywhere. Here there are more affordable options, but regardless, there's still a huge homeless population in the city. Undeniably, Sacramento belongs towards the top of today's list. Number 4 is Fresno, California. Without a doubt, Fresno has the worst homeless problem of any city in the United States or in California. Jose, it's a liberal crap hole over there. Personally, I don't give a crap about politics, but because every single time I make this type of video, it's a Democratic crap hole down there, I wish they would at least research what they're saying, because Fresno, California, if you didn't know, has a Republican mayor. Regardless, every one of my videos from Fresno, or anytime I mention Fresno, the first thing people say, it's a crap hole down there. At bare minimum, please do some research before you go blabbing your political crap out there. If you're going to publish political crap, at least make sure it's accurate. Number 3 is Denver, Colorado. This city has a huge homeless problem. Not if you ask the locals. The locals believe that the homeless here are some type of protected species. And while I do believe in allowing the homeless people to set up a camp somewhere, that somewhere should never be your downtown of your city. Or, even worse, the freaking state capital. I'm all for helping homeless people. But then you have cities like Denver, which allow homeless people to do whatever they want. They're a protected species. They can set up their camps anywhere they want to, even if it's the freaking downtown of a city. Who am I to say they can't do that? I do believe in helping homeless people, but I also believe that they're not like some endangered protected species that gets to do whatever the crap they want. Denver, Colorado has a huge homeless problem, and I think the people there are just making it worse. The people that I talk to in Denver, they feel that homeless people have the right to be homeless. They have the right to be homeless wherever they want. They have the right to poop wherever they want. And if you demand that they should have some type of civil order, then you're the problem. And that's not how things work. There's law and order. And yes, you're homeless. Yes, we need to accommodate your needs in some type of way. But that doesn't make you have a free reign of the world where you can set up homeless camp wherever you want. But regardless, their homeless problem is not going to be solved because in their eyes, this isn't a problem. These are just people enjoying their freedoms of pooping everywhere they want and setting up a homeless camp in front of the state capitol. They're totally entitled to do that. What homeless problem are you even talking about? These people are free. I'm not exaggerating. That is literally the mindset that people in Denver, Colorado have about homeless people. And again, like many cities on this list, Denver is actually one of the most beautiful cities in America with access to some of the most beautiful natural scenery anywhere in the country. But the homelessness actually prevents tourists and people from going there and enjoying these things, because when you go to Denver, you have to deal with so many homeless people. You can't use the bathroom. It becomes a complete aggravation. Number 2 is Portland, Oregon. Without a doubt, the situation of homelessness in Portland is among the worst in the United States. Homelessness here is everywhere. It's viewed as normal, and increasingly over the last few years, it just keeps getting worse. Places that didn't have homeless camps 2 or 3 years ago today are flooded with homeless camps. They're nice enough to put up the signs in Spanish, even in case somebody wants to trespass in Spanish. However, any Hispanic person moving to Oregon will only make 60% of what a white person would make, so Hispanics in Oregon actually have some of the worst income equality. It's a level of hypocrisy of, on the surface, appearing to be inclusive by having no trespassing signs in Spanish, but in reality, if you're Hispanic and you live in Oregon, economically you have one of the worst outlooks possible for any Hispanic. Homelessness has always been bad in Portland, but it seems like the COVID policies led to an increase in homelessness. In 2019, this little plaza here was beautiful, and in 2023, it became an absolute crap hole. This sudden demise of this area would accordingly make sense to be blamed on COVID policies. This gas station now has metal bars on the windows. A few years ago, it didn't. All this happened within a very short time span, and it would make sense that COVID policies here did more damage than they did good. Number 1 is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Undoubtedly, when you talk about homelessness in the United States, there is no place more notorious than Philadelphia. Despite that, Philadelphia doesn't seem to catch a lot of heat for its political fault in the matter, allegedly, right? It doesn't seem like it's that relevant. Whatever the cause of Philadelphia's homelessness is, the first time you see Kensington in Philadelphia, you're probably going to be scared, shocked, even sad and depressed. I've seen homelessness all over the United States, but nothing is as shocking and hurtful as taking a ride through the streets of Philadelphia. Without a doubt, the cause of homelessness here is almost certainly addiction, and the outcome for the people that end up on these streets is almost certainly death. Today, a lot of people blame homelessness on politics. In some cases, policies like COVID, other policies on drug enforcement have a definitive political tie. But overall, you would have to be very narrow-minded to solely blame politics of the reason why these cities are in this condition. And in our last homeless video that we did that was this elaborate, a lot of people said that it was all because these are Democratic-run cities. Well, I started to do the research and I figured out a lot of these cities were actually Republican, and the people that were saying these comments were not really spreading truth, they were spreading lies. Today, people want to make everything be about their politics, and really it's draining, it's overwhelming. People don't even care about the condition these people are in or the real causes of how they ended up there. Now, I've interviewed homeless people all across the United States, and I've talked to homeless people all over. And in different parts of the country, there's different reasons. In some places, it's economically difficult. In other places, people are plagued with addiction. In some places, housing is extraordinarily expensive. But I have never personally had a homeless person tell me that the reason they're on the streets is because of Republicans or because of liberals. I've always tried to make my YouTube channel a place of real dialogue where we can really have educated conversations with people who are open-minded and willing to just listen to other people and have real conversations. But today people have become so politically charged that when I look at the comment section, it's just one giant political script. And if it was at least true, but it's not. If you dive into what people are saying, they're getting their information from sources that are not accurate. People are just blindly repeating what they hear. These are the homeless of tomorrow. Addiction leads to homelessness. There's one thing that I've learned while doing my YouTube videos is that most of these homeless people start off as users. They thought it was recreational, or they were getting it prescribed through a doctor. They thought it wasn't going to hurt them, and it eventually led them to homelessness. Many are still in denial about their situation, saying that if they really wanted to be something better, they could, but they're just deciding to be homeless for now. The reality of homelessness is that nobody wants to go without a roof. Nobody wants to go without a bed. Nobody wants to go without a warm shower. Anybody who's homeless is there involuntarily, whether they want to admit it or not. Then you have lazy people wanting to exploit the system. They want to get all the benefits they can because they don't want to work, and those people make it harder for people who are actually disabled, actually need government assistance to obtain it. The same thing can be said for the scammers. Even when we as people volunteer to help the homeless, we know that most of the times when we see somebody on the wheelchair on the side of the road, a lot of them are pretending to be in a wheelchair. They're not really disabled. They're just trying to exploit our emotions. And that is why people that are scammy, people that are trying to exploit the system, are hurting people who are actually ill, who are actually disabled, and they make it harder for people who need the assistance to obtain it. If you are currently homeless, I would love to hear your opinion on today's video. I don't have to like your opinion, I just want to hear it.